guys, welcome back to another episode of Tap and Go today. Today we're very fortunate to be joined by Rugby United New York's fullback, Troy Lockyear. Troy, how are you doing today?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, thanks so much for joining us. So I think might as well start right at the beginning. So obviously you grew up in England, went to school in England, and you were playing academy rugby. So while you were going to school, and you were playing for Wasps, I think.
Yeah.
You played against the likes of Sam Underhill, I think. Back then,
Yeah.
against him, did you know he was going to be as good as he was today?
Well, it's funny because I distinctly remember like everyone talking about this guy before we played them. I was like, oh, they have this flanker who's like unbelievable. I remember getting off the bus and like we were warming up on the field beforehand and we saw him. It was just like an absolute tank. Like I swear he was that like the size he is now when he was like 16 years old. And yeah, he was pretty good in that game. And I think you kind of just see that some of those guys and he just had so much talent. And there was kind of that hype around him. So, I mean, obviously didn't know how good he was going to be, but definitely had a feeling that he was going to go somewhere. And yeah, he's doing all right now. So
Obviously, you were in the academy. You're playing. How come you took the change of tack and decided you want to go to America when you're doing so well within England, like the grassroots and building up from there?
I think just like I was always like, I mean, I've loved my rugby and obviously still do, but I was always like very like conscious that rugby is not a long time thing, and I love my rugby, but I also have a lot of other things that I enjoy in my life, and I felt just America kind of offered a cool opportunity where I could go to university, get a degree, kind of experience a new part of the world, be in California, and then also play good rugby and then kind of see where it go from there. So I kind of just felt like it had a lot more opportunities for me. And I think I was at Wasps and I was enjoying my rugby, but I felt like it almost like I'd hit a bit of a wall, like with regards to enjoying it. And I didn't see myself actually staying at Wasps like long term. So I felt like this going to America kind of, just kind of offered a new opportunity for me and kind of got me really excited about it and got me, I kind of found that love for the game again.
Of course. And so you went to Cal Berkeley, which is known as arguably being the best rugby school in America. It's sort of, there's a stat where like in that 30-man squad in the 2011 Rugby World Cup, 7 were the Cal alums. What was the culture like there? So what made it so good?
I think it's just got like, it's kind of just got such a long history there within the university. It was actually the first sport on campus. So it's kind of got a really deep rooted kind of position in America, in the American university, which is kind of rare in a lot of American universities. I don't think there's anywhere else in the country that has that kind of establishment there. And I think just the culture is awesome because you have people from all over the world. Like, there's guys from England, guys from New Zealand, from Australia, from Hong Kong, like just all from all over the world. And I think that everyone just comes together with kind of the similar kind of outlook on life. Like they want to go and play good rugby, but also kind of, embrace the American culture and the American university culture. So it kind of, it creates a really cool environment. And it's one that I was so grateful to be part of.
And you've spoken about previously about sort of being the English kid within the rugby in America at Berkeley. Can you sort of go a bit further on that and sort of say, like, were you like singled out for being from England, like the home of rugby, sort of, were you like the big prospect?
I mean, I don't think I was like considered. I mean, there's kind of, I mean, so in my year, it was there was a few English boys. It was the 3 of us. So I guess there's kind of honestly a bit of talk about the guys who come over from like the English playing nations. But I think they've had so many English people come from years before and stuff. There's not really any special hype, or there wasn't any special hype about me. It was just kind of, it's just pretty interesting because I'd never really been to America before. So it's quite, coming into American culture as an English person is just quite an interesting thing. I'm sure as you probably understand, Matt, like they just have a bit of more of a fascination about you. So it's kind of more in like general culture that I found interesting being like an English person.
And how did the sort of rugby change? Because obviously, Cal, you play on an AstroTurf. It's sunny all the time. So I guess compared to England, where you're playing on grass most of the time and it's wet weather, did the style of rugby change a lot?
Yeah, it's like completely different. I mean, I'm sure you guys know, like in England, like you literally just dream of like having a Saturday that's sunny weather. Like I always remember like the first month of season, like in September, would always be really nice. It'd be like where we'd play our nicest rugby. And then as it got into like October, November, would just be like, especially when you're playing fullback, would just be so miserable because it's just muddy, rainy, and awful. So yeah, going to California and you can just play such a nice brand of rugby because it's, as you said, nice every day. So that was awesome. Like I love playing exciting brand of rugby. So yeah, that was awesome. And I think also playing sevens as well in that weather as well was just awesome, because like whenever you're in England, you play in Roslyn Park or whatever, it tends to always be bad weather, and you actually never really get to play that nice of a sevens game. So yeah, just being able to play on a fast field with good conditions just helps people like me, that's for sure.
Nothing quite like a nice wet Thursday afternoon on the field, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Was there anything in particular that you noticed about when you went to Berkeley about like sort of the change, sort of looking away from rugby more as like in the college sort of way, that your life sort of differed? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think just like I think I got a bit of appreciation for like kind of my like passions and stuff outside of rugby. So I had my first 2 years at university. I actually got there and had 2 like year-long injuries. So I basically I played like 1 match in 2 years. So I kind of got out there with obviously all this excitement and all this kind of like, excitement to play, and, just couldn't wait for the opportunity. And I got there and then had these 2 injuries, which basically meant I was on the sideline for 2 years. So it kind of made me really like focus on the things that I enjoyed outside of rugby, because you never know what's around the corner. So I think that like I was really thankful for, and actually like I always say this to people, I think honestly those injuries were awful, but they couldn't have happened in a better place. And yeah, so I think just it's so important, I think, in life to find things outside of, have many things that you enjoy and you like doing, because you never know what's around the corner. So yeah, that's probably one of the things I learned.
Yeah, but
sorry, Matt, you go.
Those injuries must have had like a large mental toll on you, especially as like coming with the not purpose, but like the sort of idea of wanting to play rugby and having it as one of your primary goals. How did that sort of affect you sort of mentally?
Yeah, I think honestly, like when I think back of it, and during that time, it was definitely probably more of a mental battle really than a physical battle. Like, obviously there's the rehab and coming back physically, there's all that stuff, which is obviously really hard. But as you said, the mental toll is kind of the hardest part of it, and I think that's the thing that takes the longest to recover from as well, especially with like ACLs, because there's also like the confidence of you being able to do, move the way that you used to move and stuff like that. I think it's just you just gotta stay positive, and you kind of just got to think about all the hard work that you put in, and all the rehab, all that stuff and all the work with the physios, all those things. You've just got to have confidence that when you do come back, you've done everything you can to get you in the right position. And to be honest, that's all you can really rely on. And then you just kind of go from there and just slowly build it up. But yeah, no, it was definitely a mental battle, and I think honestly I'm probably mentally stronger now because of it than I was before. So
one thing we briefly mentioned earlier is sort of the difference between England and America. But one thing I find crazy is the fact that if you're going for on a Saturday to go play rugby, you fly potentially across the country. Like so far, was that something that took almost a bit of an adjustment in sort of your preparation for games and stuff? The fact that you do so much traveling.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like as you said, like in England, like our the worst away game would probably like a 3-4 hour drive. But like we played in New York or whatever from California, so it's a 6-hour drive, a 6-hour flight. And I think that's also something that was so cool about it. Like it was so cool to being able to go to a new state, new city, and be able to see another part of the country. But yeah, no, it definitely affects your prep and stuff. And I think now, especially playing in this league, like the travel is such a big part of actually being able to perform well, because we fly. Say we're playing on a Saturday, we fly potentially 6 hours on a Friday, and then we finish a game, and then we're on a flight again 6 hours after. So it's such a long time to be in the air, and like to make sure you don't feel rough on the Saturday, make sure you recover well is such an important part of the game, so you can then perform the next week. So that's definitely something that I think grateful for that I had at university, because I was able to kind of learn a bit about that and experience it. Whereas I think a lot of guys maybe in England and stuff who haven't really experienced those long flights for travel probably find it a bit harder. But yeah, it's definitely a tough part, but also just I think an awesome part about playing in America.
Yeah, and it's incredible because I guess you don't really appreciate it unless you live in America, but each state is so different. As in sort of they're almost completely different countries, like the East Coast and West Coast, and never mind sort of everything in between, which is culturally fascinating. But I guess this is a good segue to move on to sort of your MLR career at the moment. So I guess when you first joined Cal, there was the MLR wasn't formed then, and when you moved to Cal, were there sort of, did you want to play professionally in America after? Was that always something that you wanted to do, or something you just picked up there?
So it's been my dream my whole life to play professionally. And I think my goal kind of always has been just to see how good I can be as a rugby player. So when I got to America, as you said, there was no league. I mean, there was the initial like pro rugby league, which was like a bit of a shambles. So I didn't really have any aspirations to play in that. But to be honest, I was was kind of hoping just to do my time at Berkeley, kind of, just play as well as I could, and kind of see where those 4 years would end up. And if I came out of those 4 years, thinking that I could pursue professional rugby, then for me, that was me going back to England or wherever, because that's where all I knew professional rugby wise. But then when the MLR cropped up, like I think it was my third year or second year it started, and then just kind of grew and grew year to year. Then when I graduated or was near graduation, was kind of thinking actually like, I love living in America. I kind of want to live here long term. Like this is becoming a legitimate competition. And I think it could be a really good place for me to develop as a rugby player and kind of be a young person in. So yeah, kind of spoke to some teams and kind of, yes, obviously managed to find my feet in New York.
So on that note, sort of talk us through the process from finishing at Berkeley and into the MLR. Sort of how did you go about? They approach you, or did you have to go out and approach them and sort of try and?
I was actually I graduated in the summer, like May, June time of 2019. And kind of the months previous to that was talking to a few MLR teams, a few interests, like no like official contracts offered or anything like that, just kind of talks, seeing how I felt and things like that. And then I graduated, and then I played USA All Americans, which is like basically USA under 23s. So I did that. We had a camp in Colorado, which is where the USA first team were as well, and they were doing their World Cup prep. So we were training there, and we had a training session with the USA team, and their backs coach, Greg McWilliams, who was the head coach of New York as well. He led the session, and he spoke to me after the session. He was like, "Oh, like what are your plans?" I was like, to be honest, I'm just talking to a few teams, but just kind of working out what I want to do really. And he was like, well, just let me know, because, potentially interested in you coming to New York. So kind of months rolled by. I went back to England, still talking to teams, wasn't really sure what avenue I was going to go down. And then I was playing for Richmond in London, kind of working out, maybe deciding if I could maybe see if I could sign for a champ team or a Prem team in England. And then New York messaged me, Greg messaged me being like, thoughts on you coming out to New York. And I was kind of sitting in London at my sister's house in Blackheath, and I was like, it was like cold and rainy. I was a bit like, you know what, like I feel like if I don't like go for this, like I'm going to regret it. Like the opportunity to go and play rugby in New York, like I've never been there, like it's surely just an unbelievable thing to do. So yeah, sorted that out, signed with them, and then joined last year. Yeah, and I absolutely loved it, and then obviously re-signed. So yeah, back here at the moment.
Obviously, COVID would have thrown a spanner in the works of last season being cancelled. Was there a bit of worries that perhaps they hadn't seen enough of you last season to get re-signed, that perhaps maybe that was just they've been ruined by
COVID? Yeah, for sure. So we managed to get, I think, 5 games we had in the season, and I managed to play 3. So I had, obviously, thankfully, we were able to play at least a few games. And yeah, that was definitely a worry. Like I came straight back to England, and I was back in England, and I also needed a new visa. So it was like a couple of things that was a bit like, oh God, like I hope I've shown enough. And also like with regards to other teams hadn't really seen that much of me as well. So if New York weren't that interested, then I was like, oh, I wonder if any other teams would be interested as well. But thankfully, I guess New York had seen enough. So we were able to sort it out. But yeah, that was definitely a bit of a worry.
I guess one player you had the pleasure of playing with in New York was Bastareaud, which is such a global name in the world of rugby. What was he like, I guess, in training?
Yeah, he was an absolute nuisance. Like he was like never wanted to be in front of him, that's for sure. He was running down your channel, you'd try and get away from him. But no, he's just, yeah, as you said, like he's, obviously an unbelievable player. I think he's just, what I found with him is just how athletic he is as well. Like, I mean, like for someone that size to move so well, and obviously be so skillful as well was something I'd never really seen before. But yeah, like have a few memories of him tackling me in training and stuff like that, which he basically just like swallow you up. Like he was so strong, it was ridiculous. But no, it was such a cool experience. shame we didn't get longer with him. But yeah, no, it was awesome to just kind of be around someone like that and learn from them and stuff.
What was he
And
like as the character off the pitch? What's his?
Honestly, like I got on really well with him. I think he is pretty French, I think, in a lot of ways. Like he, it was pretty different, like scenario for him to come into. Like, he's obviously come from Toulon, where everything kind of he has everything he wants and whatever. And you get treated like, one of the best players in the world, which rightly so he should be. And you come to the MLR, which is a brand new league. A lot of the teams, don't have a lot of funding, or they've never, like a lot of the owners may have never really owned a rugby team before, so they're not, the kind of the organizational stuff is kind of complicated. So I think he found that transition quite hard. I didn't think things ran quite as smoothly as they would have done probably at Toulon. But no, like nothing bad to say. I mean, yeah, he's a really nice guy, and yeah, it was a pleasure to meet him and play with him.
And I guess we spoke about sort of his French career and Toulon and everything. Did he sort of bring sort of a bag of experience with him that he could sort of share out with other people and sort of help especially the new clubs and the new players in particular?
Yeah, I think so. So I mean, obviously he came in we were initially as a centre, and then they put him at number 8. And I think he was kind of offered a lot of help, and especially for the backs. And then as he was transitioning to the back row, like I think obviously was also offering some help, or like also learning from other people, because he was quite inexperienced there. But yeah, I think as you said, unfortunately we just didn't really get that much time with him, so it was hard to really say that much, because I mean, 5 games. Yeah, no, it was cool. It was an awesome experience.
Obviously, Bassett is an example of this, but many are sort of looking at rugby in America, and you see some of the players going out there, seeing it's sort of a home for the older generation, where people are going sort of not their last hurrah, but their last ditch. What's your opinion? Do you think it's got the capacity to, as in your prime example, getting younger players over there who can really try and build their careers over there?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what we're going to see. I think now you already see it, like in this year and like last year, like a lot of, especially from New Zealand and stuff. I think you get a lot of now, getting a lot of guys who maybe aren't quite making Super Rugby, who may be playing Mitre 10 like in half of the season or half of the year, and then they come to the MLR, and it's an opportunity for them to like really establish themselves and get good playing time. And I think for me, like personally, like here I'm able to get, at the moment, getting more game time than I would if I was, playing back in England, and that's only going to help your rugby. So I think it's just a really good opportunity for young players to come over, kind of build a bit of a brand for themselves, like kind of make a name for themselves. And honestly, I do really see this league becoming the league where, like, it's not the league that's just a stepping stone for other leagues. Like, I actually think that this is going to be a league where people will want to be. This is where they want to be. I think just like in 4 years, 5 years, if it's growth, like, it's a joke how much better it's got. And I think that's just the pull of coming and playing in America is just so strong, and I think people will just want to latch onto that as much as possible.
And what's the pull? Is it sort of the country, or is it sort of the opportunity? Or
I think the country is a massive part. I mean, that's a big thing for me as well. Like, I think a lot of the cities that you can play in, the places you can play, like, I think are a lot more appealing. The chance to go and play in San Diego or LA or New York, like, they're just like massive world cities. To be able to go and play rugby there is awesome, and experience those places. So I think that's a massive thing. I think, as we were talking earlier, the opportunity to travel as well. Like, in the season, you get to travel around the country. So you're able to see so much of America in the season. So that's probably a big pull. And I think also just the American market, like Americans, like they do sport well. And they generate, they're just so passionate about sport. And I think if they're able to kind of bring that kind of American kind of new era of rugby to the world, which I think rugby needs at the moment, I think that'd be really cool, and something that I think a lot of, especially young people, would want to come out and play.
Yeah. And I guess like we're starting to see more and more sort of rugby being on the TV in America, and sort of more on sort of social media and everything. Do you think that rugby has the ability in America to break into, so you got the big 4 sports in America of basketball, ice hockey, football, and baseball. Do you think rugby has the potential to break into and perhaps displace one or become a big 5? Or?
I mean, I think, to be realistic, like, to get into that kind of territory is probably, like, if that's going to happen, will be a long, long way off. But I think the beauty of it is you look at the MLS, which is comparatively like nowhere near those, but that's still very big in kind of like in sport terms. So I'd almost try and put it as, I think realistically more try and get it to like an MLS kind of target. So I don't think it's going to be, I wouldn't think it's going to be a sport that can knock those on, because I think they're so deep rooted into like American culture. But I think if you can make it something that, as you said, at least millions and millions of people are watching, because that's still obviously a massive, massive fan base. Yeah, I think that's definitely something that could happen. And I think it will happen. So I think it's just a matter of time.
Looking at your season this year, I think you guys are sitting pretty much mid-table. I think fifth in the ladder. How in your opinion, how's it gone? Has it gone to plan? Has there been something which has been missing for the side, which is why you're not right at the top?
No, I think we've got a seriously like talented team, and I think we've got a load of potential, and I think we just haven't really, I think we've only had probably a couple games where we've really been able to show what we think, what we think we can do on a field. I think we've had a lot of games that we've underperformed. So I think probably at the moment we're probably a bit disappointed with our performances. I think we've got a lot of areas where we can grow. Like we're here to win the championship. Like we're playing for the championship. So, and we think we've got the team to do that. So I think, there's a lot of things positive, but I think there's a lot of things we're working on. I think as the season goes on, I think you'll see probably a very different New York team than you're seeing right now. It's just we had a few complications early on in the season. Like unfortunately, our head coach had to go because his wife was unwell. So we had, I think, a few things that just probably didn't help us too much in the short preseason and stuff like that. But obviously, no excuses. It's just I think just the way what things happen.
Yeah, and how would you explain the New York brand of rugby? Sort of what style of rugby are you guys trying to play like?
I think just honestly, we want to play a very expansive, like really exciting brand of rugby. I think all of us just really want to, and I think especially now, like with the way rugby's going in international level, like, there's so much talk about kind of it's not being very exciting, like, loads of kicking, like super defensive focused. And I think, obviously we're not saying we're not defensive focused already, but I think we want to play like a brand style that we know that's entertaining, that people want to watch, and that also that we want to play. And I think at the moment, as you probably, I don't know how many games you guys have seen, but each game for us has probably been pretty different. So I think we're probably still kind of discovering our identity. But yeah, I think just the super exciting, but also like very brutal and quite like attritional game as well. Like I think kind of represent the New York City as well in that way. It's pretty gritty and as have you been, it's like a pretty dark place sometimes. So we want to kind of represent that in that way as well.
And looking forward into the future, obviously finish this season, are you going to look to stay in the US now for the majority of your career, or is it potentially the US as a springboard to move somewhere else?
Honestly, you haven't really got plans like either or. I think at the moment I'm just really happy playing my rugby here. And I think if that continues, then I'll stay, or if I, start thinking that maybe a potential opportunity to go back to England and have a go in the Premiership, like I think that obviously would also be awesome. I think, just haven't really got a set plan or a set goal. Kind of just, as I said before, just trying to just see where, if I think it's the best place I can play and the best place for me to get better, then that's kind of the decision I'm going to make. But yeah, just really happy at the moment where I am.
I guess one thing that you do in your spare time is magic, which is awesome. How did that sort of passion stem?
So it stemmed when I was at school. So when I was like 15, 16. And I think when I was really young, my mum said that I was always really keen on magic. Like I always used to love like when magicians came to parties and stuff. Like I don't really remember, but she said I always was fascinated with it. So I think I've always had this kind of like pull towards it. And then I had a friend come to stay with me when I was like 15, 16, and he'd learned a trick off YouTube. And I was just like, oh, that's sick. Like that's so cool. You just learn on YouTube. And I have quite an addictive personality. So I always I kind of like when I start something, I don't want to stop until I get pretty good at it. So yeah, I started learning some tricks, would show it to the family and stuff, and enjoyed it. And then I would just practice and practice and practice. And basically, years and years down the line, basically just started then becoming like a really big part of my life. It's kind of fallen off a bit kind of recently. And I think I want to, it's been a thing that I really want to bring back, especially during COVID. Like I was working back on it. It's obviously just quite hard now with it's not really that many. Well, I know events and stuff are opening back up, but kind of want to get back into kind of the actually performing to people and stuff again, because that's that's the most enjoyable part of it. But yeah, as we were just talking about earlier, just the kind of finding stuff that you enjoy outside of rugby, I think is just really important. Kind of keeps you sane. And yeah, that's just just one of mine.
Yeah, it's so good for your mental health to be able to sort of take that break away from the intensity of professional sport and sort of enter your own little bubble. What sort of tricks? What sort of tricks did you do?
So I do a lot of like card tricks. So I much prefer like close up magic. So like in small groups. So like if there's a party, like going around small tables, what like that kind of vibe, less than kind of big stage magic.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like card tricks, things like that. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
And why is that? Sorry, as opposed to the larger.
I think just it's kind of, I love the interaction with people. And I think like there's something about like when you're doing it right in front of someone's face, like the reaction's even better because they're like, how have I not seen what you've just done? Whereas on the stage, I feel like there's more opportunity for you to hide things, and you're away from the people, so you're not really connecting with them quite as much. And I also just enjoyed I was like massively into like David Blaine and Dynamo, and so I used to love watching them, like their street magic stuff. So yeah, I used to go around with my mates with a camera and just like go to randoms in the street in London and stuff. So that's quite funny.
Well, one question that we always ask all our guests is sort of your favorite moment in your career, in your rugby career, and it can stem from the first time playing rugby to the most recent. So I guess what would yours be?
I think my favorite, like the happiest moment, or like the kind of, the most real moment I've had was my last year at university, our national championship semi-finals, which was against our rival St. Mary's. At St. Mary's, like absolutely like gorgeous day, like absolutely rammed full of people. And it's notorious because their fans are like really, really hate us. So like just, and then it's like 80, 85, 80, 90% of their fans is their fans. So like all against us. We're down in the last minute. I think we're down by like 4 points or whatever. And then basically in the final play, we managed to work from our 22 to their try line and score to go to the final of the national championship. So yeah, my family, my mum and my sister had come out to watch as well, all the way from England. So yeah, that was a pretty special moment, and probably the one I'll remember.
Incredible.
Troy, thank you so much for coming on, for giving up your afternoon. It's been really fun for us, and we hope you've enjoyed it as well. And thank you to everyone else as well for tuning in and listening.
Yeah, lovely to meet you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Come on! Come on!
Thanks for listening to the Tap and Go podcast. I'm Guy Thompson, and I'm a Loose Heads ambassador, the mental health movement normalising the conversation in rugby. Head over to looseheads.co.uk and get 15% off at the checkout now with code TAP and GO. Take care.